The first part of this walk takes place within Melbourne's central business district, after which the option exists to extend it through some of the many parks and Sports and Entertainment Precinct. It starts at the State Library of Victoria, opened in 1856, which was one of the first free libraries in the world. Consider joining a free guided tour to fully appreciate the exhibits on the upper floors, which include armour worn by Ned Kelly. On leaving, take Trobe Street alongside the library, then at the next major junction, turn left into Russell Street past the former Magistrate's Court building. The crossroads here offers the first opportunity to observe a fully operational hook turn, where because of the tram system, there are special rules for vehicles wishing to turn right. Old Melbourne Jail, a little way along Russell Street, is where Ned Kelly was hanged. The gallows is still there. Continue past the 8-hour day monument, built to commemorate workers' struggles for an 8-hour working day, before turning right past the Victorian Trades Hall, the world's oldest trade union building. Next turn into Drummond Street, a pleasant boulevard where Victorian terraced houses have become desirable residences close to the city centre. At the roundabout, head right past the Sacred Heart Church towards the Melbourne Museum. Once located in the State Library where this walk commenced, it has expanded to house a diverse collection of exhibits. Walk round to the front of the Royal Exhibition Building, the first Australian building to become a UNESCO World Heritage Site, into Carlton Gardens, where the best chance of seeing resident possums is at dusk. From the fountain there, head to the far left corner of the park. Cross the road to follow the tram tracks between the trees along Victoria Parade, before turning into Gisborne Street past the Fire Services Museum. Just before unmissable St Patrick's Cathedral, the tallest and largest church building in Australia, turn right by the less obvious St Peter's Church, then opposite the Synagogue and Salvation Army building, cut through Parliament Gardens. The Princess Theatre ahead is haunted. Continue downhill past Parliament House, where the Parliament for the State of Victoria sits, and where guided tours are possible when it's not in session. The old Treasury beyond, built in 1862, is now a free museum. At one time, the basement was used to store recently mined gold. Return along Spring Street past the Windsor Hotel, an entrance to Parliament Station, then immediately after the Princess Theatre, turn towards Chinatown, visible in the distance. Enter Chinatown through the gate beside Her Majesty's Theatre, before turning right by the Chinese Arch and statue of Sun Yat-sen to where a couple of lions guard the popular Chinese Museum. There's been a Chinese community here since the gold rush of 1851, and as could be reasonably expected, there are many Chinese restaurants in the vicinity. Continue along Little Bourke Street, across Russell Street, then left into Swanston Street for the short walk down to Bourke Street. Turn right into the pedestrianised zone. Pedestrianised, that is, except for frequent trams and other official vehicles. Most street artists who perform here are talented. Much of the work by graffiti artists along Union Lane, the first turning to the left, is equally as impressive. Before taking the second turning past Union Lane into the Royal Arcade, there are a couple of detours to contemplate. Firstly, at the next major road junction, turn right past the old General Post Office, now restored as a retail outlet, into Elizabeth Street to visit Queen Victoria Market. It's claimed to be the largest open-air market in the Southern Hemisphere, where many of the buildings date from the 19th century, if that makes sense. Notwithstanding, it's about an 800-metre walk or a free tram ride. All tram rides within the central business district are free, and the market lies just within the boundary. Unmissable on the left-hand side, and reputedly popular with tourists, it's closed on Mondays and Wednesdays. Second detour is for a pizza. After the old General Post Office, continue uphill along Bourke Street, then turn first right into Hardware Lane. While there are not very many mega-chain pizza restaurants in Melbourne, Italian immigration since the Second World War has ensured that the genuine article is in plentiful supply. The Royal Arcade is a fine example of Victorian architecture. Not unlike those remaining in and around London's Piccadilly, it's been modernised but effectively little changed since opening in 1870. Look up to see the statues of Gog and Magog flanking a large clock, and look back to see Old Father Time. Slightly to the right of the exit across Little Collins Street, continue into Block Arcade, which is similar but not opened until 1891. Possessor of an etched glass ceiling, mosaic floor and some fine plasterwork features, it is also home to the Hope Tomb Tea Room, one of the oldest in the world and, judging by the queues, extremely well patronised. Bookings are accepted, but for high tea only, you understand. Hake's Chocolate Shop is also worth a visit. After Block Arcade, cross the road to Centre Place, lined with bars, cafes, restaurants and boutiques. Then over Flinders Lane, continue into De Grave Street, similar but more well known, with graffiti and street performers enhancing the ambience. At the end, turn right along Flinders Street, where Flinders Street Station occupies the opposite side of the road. Immediately before the junction with Elizabeth Street, cross towards the station and then take the steps down to the pedestrian subway beneath the railway tracks. Exit towards the Evan Walker footbridge, from where views of the Southbank include the Crown Casino, one of the biggest in the world, and the Eureka Tower, named after a rebellion during the Victorian Gold Rush, which has a public viewing platform on the 88th floor. On the other side, head left along the Riverside Promenade. The dome and clock tower of Flinders Street Station and spire of St Paul's Cathedral are obvious on the skyline opposite. Before the next bridge, take the steps up beside Hamer Hall, home to the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra, the Australian Ballet and Opera Australia. The State Theatre, then the National Gallery of Victoria, are just beyond it along St Kilda Road. At the top of the steps, turn sharp left over the bridge to the crossroads, where the main entrance to Flinders Street Station, with its dome arch and clocks, is one of the most recognisable views of Melbourne. Opened in 1910, it's the busiest station in Australia. St Paul's Cathedral opposite, seat of the Archbishop of Melbourne, dates from 1831, except for the spires, which were added 30 years later. Then there's Federation Square, completed in 2002 at a cost of more than 4 times the original estimate. Some like it, others are not so complimentary. Comparison with Melbourne's architectural treasures is interesting. Home to the Australian Centre for the Moving Image, which shows movies, holds exhibitions and has a website. It also houses the National Design Centre and the Ian Potter Centre, part of the National Gallery of Victoria, Australia, which features a comprehensive collection of Australian art. For information about the popular bicycle and boat tours that start from here, head over to the Riverside Path. Follow Flinders Street between the Cathedral and Federation Square away from the station for about 150 metres, then turn into Hosier Lane for an outstanding and ever-changing display of street art. At the top, go right before turning uphill along Russell Street towards St Michael's Uniting Church, built in 1867, and Gothically styled Scots Church, built in 1874. Turn left along Collins Street past the Regent Theatre, at one time due to be demolished, but eventually refurbished and reopened in 1996, and opposite the Athenaeum Theatre, completed in 1842, where the first ever movie was shown in Australia. Continue towards the clock tower of Melbourne Town Hall on the corner of Swanston Street, where Australia's Queen Elizabeth II paid a visit in 1954. Just beyond the Town Hall, a few metres along Swanston Street, Half-Tick sells cut-price tickets for shows and tours. The State Library, where this walking tour started, is some 500 metres further along. The tram there is free. The extension to this walk passes mostly through local parks via the Melbourne Cricket Ground. From the Town Hall, head back past Flinders Street Station and across the bridge, following the first path left as it winds down to the river. At the water's edge, turn right past a parade of well-maintained and often busy rowing clubs, before continuing along the riverside path which goes by the name of the Main Yarra Trail. Cross the first bridge, keeping to the left, then cross the road at the far end of it. To the right, the Holden Centre, formerly the Olympic swimming pool, is owned by Collingwood Football Club, Australian Rules Football Club. The Amy Stadium, home to the Melbourne Storm, lies ahead in the distance. Walk towards it a short way along Olympic Boulevard before branching through the entrance to the Melbourne and Olympic Parks. The Melbourne Cricket Ground can be reached by taking the covered bridge above the railway tracks. Firstly, though, take a short detour to the far side of the Rod Laver Arena, home to the Australian Open tennis tournament, where there is a rather nice tribute to Australia's tennis stars. Across the bridge, it's possible to take a guided tour of the MCG, which was the main venue for the 1956 Olympic Games and now hosts Australian Rules Football's annual Grand Final. Many exhibits in the impressive museum there have been donated by some of Australia's finest sports personalities. Cricket is also played at the venue. Return to the central business district by heading away from Shane Warne's statue outside the Melbourne Cricket Ground through the park towards Fitzroy Gardens. Just past the Norm Smith Monument, where about 8 paths converge, turn first left. At the road, turn right, then at the next junction cross into Fitzroy Gardens. A short way along the first path to the left, which runs more or less parallel to the road, fork right. Immediately past Sinclair's cottage, the route to Cook's cottage, once owned by Captain James Cook's parents, is signposted. Transported from England in 1934, it was originally built in 1755, making it the oldest building in Australia. Beyond it, the conservatory, full of plants, can also be visited. Continue over Lansdowne Street, then past the side wall of the old Treasury building, visited earlier in this tour. Finally, cross into Flinders Lane, which leads back to Swanston Street near Flinders Street Station and the Town Hall.